I'm sure you know all of the best phones in the market right now anyway, but this list is more of my opinions of all of the best smartphones released this year. Not only that, but the upcoming second half updates to those phones, what we can expect, and also should you jump into the flagship phones that we have right now. So we have the Galaxy S20 Plus on the list, and I chose the S20 Plus because I genuinely think that that is the better phone for most people. The S20 Ultra adds a lot of unnecessary things for most people depending on who you are, but it's way more expensive and it's quite big and bulky and heavy, and actually most people, I guess, wouldn't really want to go for that phone. It does have a good zoom range, but the 100 times zoom just was found out to just not be that great, past about 30 times. If you really are into zoom, then it is that one, but I think you can get most, if not very close to the same performance in the S20 Plus. What's really good about the S20 Plus is it's physically way smaller, it's easier to handle. It still has all of those really high-end specs, but just none of the bells and whistles that add a lot of the price on top of the S20 Ultra. Also with the S20 Plus, you actually don't have any of those focusing issues that did plague the S20 Ultra. You don't get the 108 megapixel sensor, you just get a 12 megapixel sensor, but it works very well. There's no focusing issues, and I genuinely think the S20 Plus is the better phone for most people. You don't have to spend the extra money getting the Ultra. Now, of course, we have the Note 20 series coming up. So should you jump in now to an S20 Plus or wait for maybe the Note 20 or the Note 20 Ultra? Definitely the Note 20 Ultra is definitely different than the S20 series. What we know right now is that the Note 20, the base model, will have a flat screen and will use an Exynos 990 or a Snapdragon 865. So a very similar chipset to be used. What we have also heard from leaks is that there are no high refresh rates on the base model of the Note 20. It will be a 60 Hz panel compared to a 120 Hz panel in the S20 Plus and Ultra and the vanilla S20. I wouldn't say that the Note 20 is bringing too many upgrades over any of the S20 phones. The Note 20 Ultra does add some new hardware. The screen is different. It has a more efficient screen that can change the refresh rate all the way from 1 Hz up to 120 Hz. Also with the camera, it's a mix between the S20 Plus and the S20 Ultra. It does have a periscope in there, but it's 13 megapixels and they're capping the zoom range up to 50 times, which is just a little bit more normal because you don't need those oil painting shots at 100 times. Depending on who you are, the Note 20 Ultra may be just a slight improvement in terms of the design and also the hardware. Apparently the focusing issues of the S20 Ultra have been fixed into the Note 20 Ultra, so it might be something you want to wait for just to have a look and see which one you prefer out of those if you're considering that type of phone. We move on to the iPhone 11. So I picked the 11, not the Pro or the Pro Max, as I think, again, for most consumers, the 11 is what most people would go for. And actually, the sales data backs that up. The iPhone 11, the base model, sells way more than the other two. If you're just a normal consumer, not really a tech geek or anything, then maybe the iPhone 11 is best. It's the most affordable, but it has a great chipset and a great dual camera. I'm sure you know everything there is to know about the iPhone 11. What I would say is that the camera dynamic range is really good with that new chipset. Should you wait for the iPhone 12 coming up? Well, the iPhone 12 series apparently is adding 5G in all of the phones, OLED screens in all of the phones, which the iPhone 11 doesn't have. It still uses an LCD. The amount of cameras is staying the same in all of the phones, so that's not really changing, but you're getting a new chipset, 5G, better image processing overall. There are a lot of upgrades into the iPhone 12 series for sure, including some different sizes as well. Rumored to start at 5.4 inches, which is really tiny, then 2 in the middle at 6.1, and then up to 6.7 inches. There, of course, will be some yearly iterative upgrades in the iPhone 12 series, but the iPhone 11 still does stand out as really good value in terms of Apple products, at least, giving you a dual camera and a big screen. The Xiaomi Mi 10 Pro. This one is a different type of phone for Xiaomi for sure. Their first phone way above $1,000 depending on which market you're in. A real flagship phone this time. They did a great job with this phone. There's a lot to like, and there's a lot of improvements they made over the Mi 9. So firstly, the stereo or the speakers in the phone, one of the best on any of the phones that I've tried. It has 2 speaker boxes, real speakers there, and it definitely makes a big difference. So it was great that they actually managed to fit 2 speaker boxes in the phone. It's just as powerful as any of the Android phones in the list because it uses the Snapdragon 865, which is the same as the S20 series. It has a really good premium design. It uses premium materials. Everything is very high end. The screen is a 90 Hz refresh rate, and that does get beaten out by a couple of others on the list. For example, the S20 series, and also another one that I'm going to mention in a second. Xiaomi did actually launch this phone in a few markets outside of China as well. So you can actually get this officially in a few places, which is good because it means you get a warranty and also connection to the network bands in your country, which is super important when buying a phone that maybe is from a Chinese brand and doesn't have a massive presence in your country. On the specs sheet though, it just really is a good performer. It has great fast charging as well, and in a lot of tests that I did previously, it was always up at the top, even number 1 in terms of how quick it charged its battery. So really from a specs and hardware point of view, this is really punching above its weight for sure. Also, the zoom capabilities on this phone are very good. It doesn't have a periscope zoom camera like the S20 Ultra or the P40 Pro or another phone that I'll mention in a second, but it does use an extra camera to try and help with zoom. And actually it really does work up to about 10 times, gives you very good zoom quality. In terms of the quality of images, colors, dynamic range, I do think it gets beaten out by a couple of other phones. But in terms of resolution and zoom range, I think it's right up there as one of the best. The OnePlus 8 Pro is next on the list, and this may be my personal favorite Android phone. And I'm not saying it's the best or the best in every area, but just to hold and use, I think it's just put together really well. The aspect ratio, the weight, the shape of the phone, it just fits me in my hand. I also really like Oxygen OS as well. OnePlus also went really high end this year. It's like $1,000 for this phone, just as expensive as the S20 Plus. Absolutely everything is ultra premium though. The build quality, the materials, the screen is absolutely fantastic. Every bit as good, if not better than one of the screens that you get in the S20 series. That high 120 Hz refresh rate. The cameras also took a big jump up. The main and the ultra wide are fantastic. The zoom camera on the OnePlus 8 Pro is the phone's Achilles heel. I just don't think it is really a very good zoom camera at all. Image quality, colors, dynamic range all fail pretty much instantly once you switch to that camera. But other than that one thing, I think the phone in general is an absolute hit for OnePlus. And then we move on to another phone from the same company under a different brand, Oppo Find X2 Pro. The OnePlus 8 Pro and the Find X2 Pro, essentially non-identical twins. And the Find X2 Pro is actually even more expensive than the OnePlus 8 Pro. There's a couple of reasons for that. And the main one is the addition of that zoom camera. So whereas the OnePlus 8 Pro really does just do everything right and just stopped at the zoom camera, they just gave up and just stopped developing it. In the Find X2 Pro, they went all out and added a periscope zoom camera, and it just rounds off the phone and really makes it utterly strong in pretty much every area. The build quality, the screen is fantastic. I think it's exactly the same one as is on the OnePlus 8 Pro, 120 Hz Quad HD resolution. It really is a specs monster. Also on the Find X2 Pro, you get 65 watt fast charging, and it is just super, super quick. Unfortunately, because of that, they had to take away the wireless charging. I don't know why they didn't add it, unfortunately. It is kind of a deal breaker for some and not for others. I wish it was there because it would literally be the perfectly spec'd out phone. But that is the one thing that's missing. The Find X2 Pro is incredibly expensive depending on which market you're in, and the prices do change. I'll leave all the Amazon links below. You can go and check out each of the phones and what they are in your country. If you click on the link, it will take you through to the Amazon page for your country, so you can see the availability and the prices of these phones on Amazon. What can we expect from Xiaomi, Oppo and OnePlus in the second half of the year? Well, Xiaomi is coming out with another very high-end flagship to replace the Mi 10 Pro. It should move that 90Hz screen up to 120Hz and add a lot of all the best features. We would assume OnePlus would come out with a OnePlus 8T Pro, again with some small upgrades, maybe using a Snapdragon 865 Plus instead of the 865. And can we hope that they maybe sort out the zoom camera? I guess we'll have to wait and see on that one. And Oppo, we don't really know their plans. They don't really have a long history of updating the Find X2 Pro. This is only the second version. The first one came a long time ago. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what they give us in the second half of the year. But you would assume they do have another flagship phone with the new Snapdragon chipset coming out. But for right now, we don't really know what it is. So should you jump in with one of these flagship phones or wait for one of the newer flagships coming out in a few months' time? There aren't going to be too many upgrades, maybe a slight bump to the chipset used, the new Snapdragon, some different designs maybe, and a camera here or there improvement. But phones released in the same year aren't going to change too much and give you massively different specs. The one exception may be the iPhone because they only do one a year and it's been a whole year since they've released one. So that's my opinion anyway. Let me know your opinions in the comments. What do you think about these phones? Do you have one? Which one are you thinking of getting, if any of them? That is it for now though. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you liked it and I'll see you in the next one.